I don't know about you, but it has been a long time now since I have heard anyone say that they can't wait for things to get back to normal. For a while there, a couple of years ago, back in those halcyon days when we thought we would be through the worst of this pandemic thing in a few weeks or a couple of months at most, who among us didn't find ourselves longing for a return to normal? It didn't take long before the talking heads on the nightly news, or maybe those around us, or maybe even a voice deep within us, started to name that we wouldn't be going back to before, and that we would instead be living into a new normal. It now feels like it's also been a very long time since I've heard anyone refer to the new normal. I think that's because no one really has to be convinced at this point. Yeah, we all get it. Things have changed. Things are changing. Early on, there were endless articles published on the topic of what this strange new normal would be like. I didn't put much stock in any of those articles at the time. It felt far too soon to be making such predictions. And it didn't feel that a pandemic of only a few weeks, a couple of months tops, was enough to fundamentally change life as we knew it. 2 years into our long, strange, and dangerous dance with COVID, though, and it is clear enough that this ordeal, for better and for worse, has changed and is changing us. Andrew Sullivan writes that plagues have often been catalyzing events, entering human history like asteroids hitting a planet. They kill shocking numbers of people and leave many more rudderless, coping with massive loss, incalculable grief, and often social collapse. They reorder the natural world, at least for a time, as human cities and towns recede and animal life re-emerges and microbes evolve and regroup. They suspend a society in midair and traumatize it, taking it out of its regular patterns and intimating new possible futures. In some cases, a society redefines itself, and in others, trauma seems the only consequence. I recall first reading those words back in the summer of 2020. Sullivan went on in his essay to detail numerous moments when disease has upended the course of human history, from the Black Death to smallpox to the flu pandemic of 1918 and 1919. These plagues in their time killed obviously huge numbers of people, disrupted economies, destabilized political systems, sparked or settled wars, and caused people to deeply question their religious beliefs. They touched most every aspect of human life. A case can be made that we're now finding this to be largely true in our own time. 2 years in, it's become clear that this virus and its many variants can affect far more than the health of individuals. In ways that were hard to appreciate at the outset, COVID has sickened many of the key systems we depend on, and it has revealed the inequality that has long been baked into our way of life and shown us anew its bitter consequences. Frank Snowden, a professor of history and medicine, explains that diseases do not afflict societies in random and chaotic ways. Pandemics are ordered events because microbes selectively expand and diffuse themselves to explore ecological niches that human beings have created. Those niches very much show who we are, whether, for example, in the Industrial Revolution, we actually cared what happened to workers and the poor and the condition that the most vulnerable people lived in. The question of whether we actually care about those who are subject to the worst whims of this pandemic is one that has, I know, haunted many of us. In various ways, COVID has simply revealed what we already suspected or knew to be true about the modern world. And it has had new things to teach us, as it has revealed both the best and the worst of our humanity. It is easy to conjure the most despicable examples, like that wealthy BC couple that jumped the vaccine queue by flying to the Yukon to get their first doses, which were intended for the White River First Nation. Like anti-vax protesters who've harassed and intimidated healthcare workers outside of hospitals. Like stunning examples of misplaced entitlement, be it from tennis stars, thoughtless strangers, or those irritating messages from that distant cousin of ours. Fortunately, such stories have so often been offset by great acts of generosity, grace, and goodwill. Moments that have made our spirits soar and affirmed the best of who we can be. But it is worth acknowledging that these 2 years of ups and downs amid so much uncertainty, as we have ridden out 4 waves and now a 5th, have taken a toll on our hearts as we've had to navigate understandable fears for our own health and well-being and for those whom we love. As we've contended with the disappointment of missing out on so many key life events, from births to deaths and the many meaningful moments in between. And as we've most likely had to deal with some level of disillusionment, as our faith in government and various institutions has been shaken by missteps and mistakes that have made clear how very human our leaders are, even as they are often doing the best they can under changing circumstances. These experiences and so many more are, I believe, changing us. The question, though, is in what way? It may still be too soon to say or even fully to know. We are, of course, still in the thick of this strange chapter of our lives. But the world as we knew it in early 2020 is obviously no longer the same. There is no real going back to where we once were. With so many changes coming into focus, the way forward is into a future few of us might have imagined just 2 years ago. In outward ways, much of our lives have shifted online, and it's near certain that we will continue to live large parts of our lives virtually, be it for school, for work, for doctor's visits, for religious services, even when the pandemic has passed and we are safely able to gather again in person. In the process, the meaning of home is being redefined, as is our sense of work and travel and play. It must also be said that these past 2 years have challenged and changed us in ways beyond the scope of the pandemic, as we have grappled with a renewed reckoning over racial injustice and been confronted anew with the horrific legacy of the residential schools through the discovery of the bodies of hundreds and hundreds of Indigenous children. For almost 6 months, the maple leaf flew at half-mast as a symbol of our national shame. In this same stretch of time, we have watched global leaders make only the most meager progress in mitigating the intensifying effects of climate change that are now becoming almost routine to us, with forests and the towns within them going up in flames in an afternoon, or floods wiping out livestock, crops, and vital infrastructure in mere minutes. And across the border, we are witnessing tremendous instability in our nearest neighbor, with daily reports on the erosion of democracy, while other global powers are rattling their sabers in ways that threaten to mightily imperil peace on our planet. This is a lot. This is a lot, I know. And it's more than our hearts and minds can at times be expected to hold, let alone know how to respond to most of the time in any meaningful way. I really empathize with those who a few days ago said that the death of Betty White was just the last straw and that they had had it. I am taking the risk of lifting up all of this morning to acknowledge that there are real and understandable reasons for this age of anxiety that we find ourselves in. There are real and understandable reasons you may be feeling overwhelmed, depressed, or despondent, sad, or angry, or completely discombobulated. This is a lot to bear. And whether we pay it much attention or much heed, it is changing us and the world around us, which is a big part of why we can't actually go back to before, even if we still wanted to. The title of my sermon today is How Then Shall We Live? It is, I believe, becoming the question of our time. In the face of all that is unfolding, in light of all that is changing, how shall we live our lives? How shall we live with meaning and purpose when so much may seem uncertain or pointless? How shall we live with integrity when the path to justice and equity is such an uphill struggle? How shall we live with courage when fear and anxiety abound? How shall we live with joy when the weight of the world feels heavier than it's ever been for most of us? I realize this is one of those moments when it might be helpful if I trotted out a simple, straightforward answer. If only. If only. We are living through extraordinary times. And it's best, in my view, not to sugarcoat the hard realities that we are living into. Because if we can name what we are feeling and even what we are fearing, we can begin to put things in perspective. Barry Schwartz, a psychologist who studies how plagues impact our psyches, recently offered what I found to be a very helpful distinction between fear and anxiety. He says that while the two terms are quite different in popular discourse, people don't often make a distinction between them. There is, he said, though, an object to fear. You are afraid of something. And he then adds that the thing with anxiety is that with anxiety, you're afraid of everything, and you don't actually know what you're afraid of. Knowing what we are afraid of can help us to deal with it, which is a helpful thing to know how to do when trying to figure out how one should live. Now, it may surprise you to hear me say that I consider this a hopeful sermon. And I say that because I find myself returning again and again these days to the wisdom of James Luther Adams, the most prominent youth theologian of the last century. Adams, who lived in Germany in the 30s and witnessed the rise of fascism, maintained to the end of his long life that there was cause for hope. Here's what he said. The resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. History is a struggle in dead earnest between justice and injustice, looking towards the ultimate victory in the promise and fulfillment of grace. Anyone who does not enter into that struggle with the affirmation of love and beauty misses the mark and thwarts creation as well as self-creation. Hear those words again. The resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. History is a struggle in dead earnest between justice and injustice, looking towards the ultimate victory in the promise and fulfillment of grace. Anyone who does not enter into that struggle with the affirmation of love and beauty misses the mark and thwarts creation as well as self-creation. The wisdom I take from his words for our time is the reminder that we, as characters in this ancient story, this long struggle of learning what it means to be human, have the resources to effect meaningful, if incremental, change in our world. That we can, through the cherishing of life's beauty and an unyielding commitment to the relentless power of love, can choose to let ourselves in this tumultuous time be changed for good. And that we can, in fact, play a part in shaping a new normal that is better than the one we once knew. We can make this world more beautiful. As the poet Adrienne Rich so powerfully put it, my heart is moved by all that I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely and with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. May we be such a people today and in all of the days that we are given. Blessed be.